welcome to the tutorial for making Disney's Anna skirt from the film Frozen. This tutorial is split up into two parts. I would also just like to give a little tip before the tutorial starts that you might want to make a half circle skirt, as we did our skirts in a front and two side backs, as you will see, and we had the side seam. When it came to embroidering on the seams, the machine had a lot of trouble. So if you want to make this, I would suggest maybe, if I was to do it again, do a half circle skirt. Enjoy! Okay, the particular skirt I'm using has three sections. The front, which has been cut on the fold, and two side sections. This skirt is going to have a zip in the back and a yoke band that will be done slightly differently to how we've done any other skirt before. Just quickly showing my yoke waistband pieces before we crack on. Okay, first of all, we've played around with a few ideas for doing the bottom edge of the skirt, and after several hours of headaches we've come up with this. Basically, I played around with the idea, and we're just concentrating on the scallops a minute, of cutting out an outer fabric and a liner. I then sewed the two together and clipped some of the corners, and then I turned it inside out. So now we have a nice neat seam all the way around the edge. Now it helps to clip the corners, otherwise you'll have a bit of trouble turning inside out and it laying flat. What I then did is just pressed it with an iron just to give me an idea of how it was going to look. Now I'm hoping and fingers crossed here that this idea is going to work out quite well. Because what I actually did is, where the lining is, I catch stitched it onto the back of this fabric, which is the different colour fabric that she has at the bottom of her skirt. But just to save confusion for now, we're just concentrating on the scallop edging, that's the outer fabric, and the liner. Now obviously, if this was the outside of the skirt, this piece would come right away up to the waistband. We don't need to unless you really want to, we don't really need to line the whole skirt, but we do need to make sure that our liner comes up quite a way inside, which is what we're doing here with our pattern pieces. From the bottom edge there to the top, I've drawn a line that's about 15 centimetres, and you'll do that on every skirt section you have. Okay, I've now got two options. As I've now marked the 15 centimetre line on the main skirt pattern piece, I can either cut that off, or, because I didn't really want to do that and I wanted to keep this in one piece, I then laid another piece of piece of paper on top, and I redrew my line and around the curve at the bottom the other side, and then I basically cut it the 15 centimetres wide, and it should be exactly the same shape as the bottom of your skirt. Now the front and back sections are slightly different, so the back was slightly longer, so you will have to cut out another piece of this if that's what you're going to do, because as I say, the back was just that little bit longer. You will of course need to do this front section on a fold, as the front section of the skirt was done on a fold, so try and remember that, otherwise you'll be putting it on and wondering where the other half of your lining piece is. Not that I do things like this, but there you go. Okay, this is the lining for my skirt. It doesn't really matter too much what you use, but because the outer fabric is made from a very thick crepe, it really wants something quite thin, so I'm just using this basic soft cotton, which is extremely thin, very, very lightweight. But as long as it more or less matches the colour of your outer skirt fabric, I'd just go for basic cotton. Now, I can't tell you exactly what type of fabric it is I used on my skirt, as when I saw it in the fabric shop, it had low label on it and they had no idea. But I would say it's like a thick crepe fabric, very heavy. Next, sew up the side sections on your skirt and iron your seams flat. Then while you're there, you can also sew up your yoke sections together and also iron those nice and flat, like so. Next, you want to sew your yoke down to your skirt, making sure you've got good side to good side and that your seams match up. And you want to run your sewing line about roughly a centimetre in, all the way around. Next, you want to clip the corners like you do on anything that's curved to allow it to bend more easily. Next, what we're doing is where you'd sewn that seam just a moment ago, you then take the band, then you pull it up, so got a nice seam there, and then you just want to pull a little tiny bit so it's nice and flat, and put some pins through, making sure that your flaps on the inside, these bits are facing upwards towards the top of the skirt, not downwards. Making sure pins go through all the flaps, all the layers. Like so. Okay, next what we want to do is, I hope you can just about see it here, I've sewn a stitching line literally just a few millimetres up from this seam edge here, like so, and I've done that all the way along the whole thing. This is now what it looks like inside. There we go. Let's quickly turn it back again. Next we want to take this and then turn it back underneath, like so. Turn it towards the inside all the way around. Okay, we've just done a quick test with our lining sections that you saw me cut out earlier. In theory, if you've measured this all correctly, it should match up with the rest of your skirt, and the seams of these pieces should match up with the seam on the main skirt. If you've done this all right, it should work out. Right, make sure that your skirt, main skirt that I've got here in my hand, is facing down, and then make sure that your lining is seam to seam and the flaps are facing upwards, like so. I want to actually sew these sections together either side. Next, starting from one edge of your skirt, you want to start pinning this down. I recommend pinning along the top, down the sides and around the bottoms as well. Trying to keep it as flat as you possibly can.